All opinions and quotations in no way represent River West Radio and are the sole responsibility of the producer, guests, and callers. River West Radio is not liable for any legal issues arising from the content of this program.
I'd ask you to speak up a little, if you will.
Yes, sir. I know why I am here.
You've been under investigation, Mr. Wordsworth, for the mandatory period of 1 year and 11 months. You're found to be obsolete. The purpose of this hearing is to make a finding in the matter and make a sentence accordingly. Do you understand that?
I understand that.
Your occupation, Mr. Wordsworth?
A radio talk show host.
A what?
A radio talk show host, sir.
I'm told you've had counsel and been given orientation, Mr. Wordsworth, but I'm still not sure in my own mind that you understand the purpose of this hearing. The field investigators in your sector have classified you as obsolete. This finding carries with it serious implications. Do you understand that, Mr. Wordsworth? Now I ask you again, your occupation?
I am a radio talk show host. That is my occupation, my profession. If you people choose to call that obsolete...
Request clarification of the term? Yes, the term. Mr. Wordsworth, you people, you make reference to the state?
I make reference to the state.
And you persist in declaring your occupation, correct?
That is correct.
A minister would tell us that his function is that of preaching the word of God. And of course it follows that since the state has proven that there is no God, that would make the function of a minister somewhat academic as well.
There is a God.
You are in error, Mr. Wordsworth. There is no God. The state has proven that there is no God.
You cannot erase God with an edict.
You are obsolete, Mr. Wordsworth. You have no function, Mr. Wordsworth. You're an anachronism, like a ghost from another time.
I am nothing more than a reminder to you that you cannot destroy truth.
You're a bug, Mr. Wordsworth, a crawling insect, an ugly, misformed little creature who has no purpose here, no meaning.
I am a human being. I exist. And if I speak one thought out loud, that thought exists, even after I'm shoveled into my grave.
Delusions, Mr. Wordsworth. Delusions. The Bible, poetry, essays, all of it illuminate to make you think you have a strength when you have no strength at all. You have nothing but spindly limbs and a dream, and the state has no use for your kind.
Yeah? Well, we're gonna have to do something about that. This is RiverWestRadio.com, community-supported radio streaming live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm your host. My name is Michael Wordsworth, and welcome to Breaking Down the News, the show that presents the news highlights of the week, but with a twist. Breaking Down the News is more concerned in bringing you information that wasn't covered on the front pages. Headlines you don't want to miss, because not listening could be dangerous to your freedom, liberty, and health. And good afternoon. It is Friday, September 14th, 2012. I am indeed Michael Wordsworth, bringing you Wordsworth listening to. What are we talking about today? Libya. What is Libya? It's a country in Africa. A country in Africa? Where? Northern Africa. What is it doing there? Well, former Muammar Gaddafi used to rule that country, and he became a bad man. So we had to take the bad man out of office, just like we took Saddam Hussein out of office, just like we're taking Bashar al-Assad out of office. Now, Libya is just left of Egypt. In other words, west of Egypt is this country, mostly desert country known as Libya, formerly known and ruled by Muammar Gaddafi. And we took he was suddenly declared to be a bad man. Do you remember that? I mean, even if you don't read or listen to news much, you might have heard of the name of Gaddafi, the ruler of Libya, and how we had to depose him because tens of thousands of people were going to die if we didn't get rid of this madman. So the public, through ignorance or just acquiescence or woeful ignorance or intentional ignorance, just rolled over and said, okay, what was significant about that particular takeover of that country, whereas we didn't put actual boots on the ground, Boots on the ground. I love that phrase. Isn't that just a sexy military term? Don't you guys just get off on those terms? Operation this, operation that. I'm being facetious because actually I don't. Anyhow, no boots on the ground in Libya, but what we did do is a no-fly zone. And how did we actually depose Gaddafi? And I shouldn't say we, because you and I out there don't run this country. We don't run this world. So how did the United States government and its military remove Gaddafi? Should I answer that question, or should I take a commercial and come right back? You know what? I'm going to take a commercial and come right back. Maybe you can go on Google. Maybe you could research it and find out how did Gaddafi actually get out of there. We're going to have a show today that's just, it's going to go to 6 o'clock hour. Ingrid is not coming in her inspirational hour. Unfortunately, she threw out her back. I'm sorry, Ingrid. Hope you're listening. You're probably on your way to the hospital right now. That's not funny. That's not why I was laughing. It's amazing. It's hard to make these shows. Anyhow, let me maintain my professionalism. Let me cut to commercial break. When we come back, we're going to explain to you what's happening in Libya today. Yay! All right, I'll be right back. You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
Experiments have shown that less than 1 minute after the viewer begins to watch television, the brain switches from beta-level consciousness, associated with active and logical thought, to alpha level, which is associated with passive acceptance and suggestibility. This is why advertisers spend billions of dollars a year on commercials, as well as product placement within TV shows. Political messages are implanted in fictional TV programs as the relaxed meditative state of the viewer is receptive to the programming.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
This is Breaking Down the News, bringing you headlines that should have made the front pages. Streaming live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3:30 p.m. Central Standard. All right, thank you for joining us today. It is Friday, September 14, 2012. Congratulations for making it this far. We are covering Libya today because what was in the news recently? Did you hear about the embassy? Isn't it? It's horrible. Oh, the embassy was overthrown in Libya. My goodness, how did that happen? What's going on? I thought we got rid of the bad guy. I thought the bad guy is gone. Gaddafi's gone. Yay. Okay. So why is our embassy being overrun in Libya? I looked to the articles on the headlines today. What do we got out of Google News? I'm going to read the mainstream version of this scene, and then I'm going to go deep and reveal what's actually happening. I'm going to break down the actual news for you for a change. No, that's what we do here on a regular basis, but the news itself, what a pathetic propaganda machine. Here we have from Time magazine, I guess. Can the U.S. stop the wave of Muslim protests targeting its embassies? Oh, I wonder, can they stop the wave of Muslim protests targeting its embassies? I thought they were embracing our democracy. We threw Gaddafi out. Why are the rebels that we helped use, put in power, and take out Gaddafi, why are they mad? They shouldn't be mad. Everybody should be happy, shouldn't they? Well, what we got here now is not a situation that makes sense at all. Let me put it to you blatantly. We use Al-Qaeda. And I got to stop saying we. Our government, because, look, you and I, we the people, us in the U.S. of the United States, we didn't send anybody into Libya. We didn't depose Gaddafi. We don't run the military. We don't print the money. We don't set the interest rates. We really don't run anything. We're a lot like children that run around playing with their games and toys, struggling with life, saying, oh, what can you do? And we don't need to pay attention. Well, we're paying attention today. I mean, when the Libya embassy gets blown up or attacked, it's That makes the news, and all we hear is, crazy extremists are attacking the embassy. Look, guys, I'm going to say it to you frankly. We put the Muslim extremists in power in Libya. Let me say that again. Our government put Muslim extremists in power in Libya. All right, there you go. You're going to see a lot of headlines. Let me, here we go, Libya. Let me see. I want all the headlines in Libya. What do we got? Our responsibility to continue Ambassador Chris Stevens' mission. What mission was that? Aiding Al-Qaeda in Libya? Again, Muslim extremists are Al-Qaeda. Basically, the Muslim Brotherhood is not all extremist radical nutballs. I'm going to say that with all due respect. I'm sure there are members of the Muslim Brotherhood that are totally just protecting their own interests, just as you or I would want to protect our own interests in our own country. But in this case, we did, in fact, article after article, clarified that we put the Muslim extremists, we deposed Gaddafi, rather our United States. Who runs the United States? Actually, it's not President Obama. It's really not. You can't really blame a president. But in this case, you can blame him because he acts as the titular head of the country. He acts as the spokesperson and representative, as the leader. But I'm telling you, he doesn't actually lead anything. He gets told what to do, and he can either play ball or not play ball. And depending upon those decisions, depends upon how much wrath he incurs from those who actually own and run him. I'm telling you like it is, people. Let's go through some of the mainstream media articles here. Protests rage worldwide. 3 reported killed outside U.S. Embassy in Tunisia. Oh, wow. Following the U.S. embassies and consulates had been braced for trouble on the Muslim Day of Prayer, when demonstrations are often held following the attack on the consulate in Benghazi, Libya, which killed U.S. Ambassador Christopher Stevens and 3 others. Okay, fallen in Libya, remembering the newest 911 victims. Oh, son, this is so sick. ABC News wasted no time exploiting this and tied it to 911. Well, let's remember the victims of 911, because 14 guys from Saudi Arabia allegedly blew up the Pentagon and 3 buildings in New York, not 2, 3 buildings in New York. And because of that, we invaded Afghanistan and then went into Iraq. And Iraq supposedly had weapons of mass destruction, but they didn't. But we went in anyhow, got stuck there for 10 freaking years. And who were we fighting? Well, Al-Qaeda, Muslim extremists, fundamentalists that hate the West. Well, you know what we're it's crazy. If you don't understand that Iraq was a Sunni majority, Iran is a Shiite majority. In Libya, basically, you've got, I can't remember if Gaddafi was Sunni or Shiite, honestly. Actually, he was a secularist. A secularist is a big fancy word, boys and girls, meaning not affiliated with any particular religious faction. There you go. So now you know what the word secularist means. Why do I put it in that condescending tone of voice? Because I realize we really do have to break down the news further here. We have to educate we the people where these countries are, who rules them, why we overthrow them, who we're using to overthrow them, and then in the end, you'll understand why the hypocritical, insane frenzy that we have in this country over security in our airports, our streets, our roadways, our buses. We're freaking out over Al-Qaeda sneaking in our underwear, our computer laptops, our shoes. Is there a Muslim extremist in my shoe? Hold on, let me check. No, there's not. Oh, it's a good thing I did that by myself, though I didn't need any help of a TSA worker. What is TSA? Let me break it down. Some people out there actually might not know what a TSA worker is. Transportation Security Authority Agency, some crap like that. I mean, who really cares what the acronym is? Transportation Security Agency, something like this. It's a division of Department of Homeland Security, also known as DHS. Oh, these are acronyms. I don't know these words. Most people don't even know where Libya is. I mean, I bet you if I literally took people out of here, people walking out the door, like, do you know where Libya is? Anybody know where Libya is? Do you know who ran Libya? Do you know why Libya was overthrown? Do you know who we used to overthrow Libya? Anybody? Anybody out there? I'm sure there's a few college students that maybe just got done with some sort of geography class and they're like, yes, I know where Libya is. Maybe somebody's from Libya. Oh my God, that would be awesome to have somebody call in. The number is 414-935-2951. My God, if you're from Libya today, please call in. I want your input because I mean, if you're living in America, I'm assuming that even if you're from Libya, there's something about America you like. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. It's not the issue. The issue is that you came to America, you're living here, and there must be some reason why you're not in Libya. So I want to hear the real Americans that have Libyan origins living here in America today and what your opinions are on this embassy bombing. McCain says Libya strike a terrorist attack, joins others in challenging the Libya strike resulted in the death of 4 Americans. Oh, that's all. Oh no, the Libya strike. Who? But who? You know, I'm looking through this and I don't see. Let me see if they even give a name. Do they say Al Qaeda? Let's see, U.S. embassies attacked in Yemen, Egypt after Libya. I'm like, should Google censor an anti-Islam video? Oh, geez, they got to get their little anti-U.S. protests continue. Libya makes arrests. Yeah, we were going to send Marines in there to find out who are these Muslim extremists that attacked the embassy. I will clarify. They are the same Muslim extremists that were given permission by NATO to overthrow Gaddafi. The people sitting here that are ignorant of what that overthrow meant, I'll tell you what it meant. Actually, Gaddafi, I'm not saying he was a good guy, but he was tolerant of black, dark-skinned Africans. He did not hate and kill them. Guess who does hate and kill black-skinned Africans in Africa? The Muslim extremists, the very ones that were authorized by NATO and our beloved dear leader president, Barack Obama, to attack and overthrow Gaddafi and depose him from his own country. Let's not forget the Queen of England owns half of BP, British Petroleum. They just spent some $40 billion down there upgrading and building new oil fields. And guess who runs those fields for them? Guess whose flag's flying over those fields? Al-Qaeda, the black flag of Al-Qaeda. Oh, here we go. Al-Qaeda, this from ABC News. Al-Qaeda took advantage of Libyan protests, CIA chief says. This quote from the CIA chief. I don't think any of us are clear yet about who carried out these attacks in Libya, but from all that I've heard, the murderous attacks in Libya that resulted in the death of 4 Americans were not accidental. That's from our CIA? That's the big report? He says, I don't think any of us are clear yet about who carried out these attacks. Well, I am going to talk today about who did carry out these attacks. They were Muslim extremists that our government and European governments under NATO control put in power and overthrew Gaddafi, took him over. That's right. In other words, we put in not just Libya, folks. Let's back up a second. There's been a recent trend going on in the Middle East. First, we took out Mubarak in Egypt. And who did we replace him with? The Muslim Brotherhood. Who are, not that I'm saying all Muslim Brotherhood members are Muslim fundamentalist extremists that want to do damage to our country. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, by and large, this is the faction where you find the radical elements of Islam, is within the Muslim Brotherhood. Again, I'm not here today promoting any sort of segregation to Muslims. out of respect for their faith and their long struggle fighting the Anglo-American Empire now for decades. I have to take my hats off to them. They've done a very good job. One thing they can't do, though, is run their own countries, because we always got to have some CIA infiltrated dictator put up there in place as a shill in representing Israel and U.S. interests. That's right. Oh, my goodness. All right, we're going to go back. Today I'm going to read an article that very clearly describes what happened in Libya. I'm Michael Wordsworth. You're listening to Breaking Down the News. It is indeed a beautiful Friday here in River West. We'll be right back. Don't go away. You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
When you start talking about manipulating the environment, we have treaties that go back to the mid-'70s that forbid this, number one, as weapons of war.
So the perfection of weather modification took place, but it became apparent that using weather modification for wartime purposes was not acceptable to the United States government and other nations of the world. So therefore, the NMOD Treaty came into being and was signed by the United States government after passing Congress. The reason it was signed and implemented was because it would ban warfare, weather modification techniques and use during times of war.
Almost all of our treaties that we've signed, including the non-proliferation, counter-proliferation treaties, chemical treaties, the ones that were signed recently, last few years, back maybe a decade now, I guess time goes. But they had domestic exemptions, and so does the environmental treaty, where you can do whatever you want in your own territorial boundaries. When you start manipulating weather in one part of the planet, it doesn't look on the ground and say, oh yeah, wait, this is the boundary of a political boundary. It fails to recognize those. So you start to talk about geophysics and manipulating the planet itself. Then it's a question of those kinds of exemptions shouldn't even be allowed.
Meteorology and the military have a very long history, as I said, and it goes into the strategic advantage that multiplies your traditional force, that is your armament, into using nature to your advantage as well.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
This is Breaking Down the News, bringing you headlines that should have made the front pages. Streaming live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3:30 p.m. Central Standard. Thank you for joining us. We're talking about Libya today, the recent attacks on the embassy. Who did it? Why? The CIA chief says we're not exactly sure who's behind these attacks. Yeah, they're sure. They're the CIA. They know that it's the same. They can't tell you it's the guys that we used to overthrow Gaddafi. They're now out of control and they're attacking us. Oh, wait. Didn't we do that in Egypt? Oh, yeah, that's right. Wait, didn't we go into Iraq and depose Saddam Hussein on the pretense that they had weapons of mass destruction, but they didn't? Yeah, we did. And then after Saddam came from a Sunni Ba'athist party, so we enacted help from the Shiites who, wait, they're allied with Iran, so we can't do that. So what do? We put the Sunnis back in power. Okay. In other words, we put back the Muslim extremists back in power. We did it in Egypt. Right now, we're very busy trying to convince the whole world that every leader of every Middle East country is a dictator tyrant that needs to be deposed. And now in Libya, they attacked our embassy. Why? I thought they were happy with us. We gave them the country that they wanted. Well, this article from Tony Cartolucci. Thank God, Tony, you're on the ball here. I'm going to read this to you. It's really amazing. Ambassador's death, he insists, are the fruits of U.S. foreign policy. There you go. The bad apple. The U.S. has sworn to make pay those responsible for the death of U.S. Ambassador Christopher Stevens. In reality, those responsible for Stevens' death are fully armed, funded, trained, and coordinated with NATO special forces in Libya, across North Africa, and in Syria. No one will pay beyond perhaps a wedding party attacked by U.S. drones, or limited liquidation of select terrorist groups the U.S. created and armed during 2011's violent overthrow of the Libyan government. Meanwhile, U.S. warships and Marines will swarm around Libya simply to fulfill Western public expectations that something will be done. The embassy attacks were tactically supported by the respective client regimes recently installed by U.S. political and military destabilization, and were designed to reestablish an adversarial narrative to counter growing public awareness of the U.S. use of terrorist proxies, and specifically Al-Qaeda in nations like Libya, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. We are now expected to believe that Egypt's new dictator, Mohamed Morsi, and the terrorists of Libya, whom the U.S. is right now arming and supporting in Syria, that's true, are once again our implacable enemies. I'm sorry, implacable. That's seldom I run across a word here. You know what, folks? We're going to break that damn word down because implacable. I'm sorry. Look, I'm not, I'm not infallible. So right here on air, we're going to look up what, okay, IMPLACABLE. Relentless, unstoppable, the implacable. I wish I knew implacable. I'm going to ask Zav. He's really good at this stuff, but I'm sure he'll come back. I'm sorry, I interrupted this intense article reading here, and this is a tremendous point about the hypocrisy that we're actually using Al-Qaeda, Muslim extremist factions of the Muslim Brotherhood, to overthrow Libya, and now they're not playing ball like we wanted them to. Okay, well, there you go. That's what. Unstoppable, relentless. So let's just take out that word and reread this thing here. The embassy attacks were tacitly supported by the respective client regimes recently installed by U.S. political and military destabilization, and were designed to reestablish an adversarial narrative to counter growing public awareness of the use of terrorist proxies, and specifically Al-Qaeda in nations like Libya, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. We are now expected to believe that Egypt's new dictator, Mohamed Morsi, and the terrorists of Libya, whom the U.S. is right now arming and supporting in Syria, are once again our relentless enemies. There you go. In all likelihood, those behind the attacks on the embassies intended the violence to be limited in scope and without any high-profile deaths, designed simply to lend sorely lacking legitimacy to American growing list of client states. Ambassador Stevens apparently was caught in smoke while escaping from the U.S. consulate in Benghazi and died of asphyxiation, smoke inhalation. A victim, they say, of unforeseen circumstances. Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit later after I get done reading this article. Turns out there's strong reason to believe from the Independent reveals that, the inside story is the American government knew that this attack was going to take place, which means Ambassador Stevens was set up. He was a patsy, a pawn, not the victim of a targeted assassination. However, with the high-ranking U.S. diplomat dead in Libya, in Benghazi, the very den of al-Qaeda leaves the United States and its foreign policy, especially in regards to Syria, in tatters. That's right. U.S. support of terrorism in Libya stretches back 3 decades. Now, let's get into this. It is a long history of terrorists and fundamentalists and the CIA involved in the Middle East. This goes way back before World War II and strongly after World War II. Here's an article from Newsweek, August 3rd, 1981. I dug this up here. And this article from Newsweek, August 3rd, 1981, says, and I quote, "The details of the plan were sketchy, but it seemed to be a classic CIA destabilization campaign. One element was a disinformation program designed to embarrass Gaddafi and his government. Another was the creation of a counter-government to challenge his claim to national leadership. A third, potentially the most risky, was an escalating paramilitary campaign, probably by disaffected Libyan nationals, to blow up bridges, conduct small-scale guerrilla operations, and demonstrate that Gaddafi was opposed by an indigenous political force. That's according to a Newsweek article entitled "A Plan to Overthrow Gaddafi, August 3rd, 1981. Wow. They took their time getting around to that, huh? 1981. Let's see, 19 plus 12. I mean, it's almost 30 years, over 30 years ago that they were talking about this. Well, congratulations. Today they finally did it. No, I don't. That's neither funny nor a good thing. And it's not at all. Deposing sovereign leaders of their rightful countries is not a good thing. You know what that makes us? Colonialists. A colonial empire. Globalization is the new colonialism. We don't get the kickbacks from the empire. We don't get the spoils of war. We don't get the gold or the oil. We didn't get it in Iraq. What do we get? We, the people, the U.S., us in the United States, what do we get? The bill. The bill for all this war, all this military expansion, this ridiculous waste of money. You and I and our grandchildren and their grandchildren are going to be stuck with this bill. And you say, oh, I've been hearing that for a long time. I never get the bill. The government never actually hands me a bill. They do. Here's how it's done. Your taxes are raised, your benefits and services are cut. Your dollar is devalued, hyperinflation sets in. Oh, yeah, we're going to talk more about that. We're going to talk about Ben Bernanke saying that he wasn't going to do QE3, and now it looks like they're going to do QE3. They've been doing QE3, and for those that don't even know what a quantitative easing is, I'm going to break that down. Actually, Caitlin didn't know what QE was, so I guess, unless you study financial markets, maybe you don't. I mean, these are words that just go right over our head. Oh, they're talking about some QE thing. That must be some new applet for my iPod, right? No, it's not. It's a freaking financial policy. Okie dokie. Well, the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, known as LIFG, I love this. They just love their acronyms, don't they? Well, the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, along with its affiliates and predecessors, have been armed, trained, its leaders coddled and supported by the West for over 30 years. One of these predecessors, the U.S. CIA-backed National Front for the Salvation of Libya, made multiple attempts to assassinate Gaddafi and initiate armed rebellion throughout Libya during the 1980s. Many of these fighters would also line the U.S. Saudi-created front, Al-Qaeda. When first it was conceived in the mountains of Afghanistan in the 1980s, most of these fighters lived and operated from Libya's eastern region of Cyrenaica. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but that's all I could do. It's Cyrenaica. Cyrenaica. I should know that, but what are you going to do? And in particular, the cities of Benghazi and Darna. I can pronounce those, so at least I freaking know where Libya is. All right? I mean, come on. At least I have an idea of its history, its rulers, how it came into being. Why is that necessary? It's necessary to understand when they're lying to us. Suddenly, all this justification for this Department of Homeland Security, this frenzy. We haven't had a terrorist attack since 9/11. And it isn't because the FBI has been doing their job. The FBI since then has started, in other words, instigated every foiled plot to commit terrorist acts in our country, including the underwear bomber. I don't even know if some of you guys remember the underwear bomber, but the guy was basically drugged onto the plane and then later made a dupe of Patsy like, oh, hey, you were going to blow up this plane. And the guy's like, I didn't know nothing about that. And he didn't. So anyhow, the U.S. Army's West Point Combating Terrorism Center, we've got a West Point specifically for combating terrorism. Well, why then are we using terrorists, known terrorists, to take over other countries? I reported last week in Russia, in the Caucasus Mountains, that NATO forces Israeli and U.S. forces were supporting Al-Qaeda terrorists to attack the Russians. I reported that, and to me, why I freak out is, how can on the one hand these terrorists be the threat that justifies all of our our civil liberties, security violations, yet at the same time, Al-Qaeda is the very ones that we're using to overthrow Iraq, Syria, Egypt, Libya. Who's next? Lebanon, Saudi Arabia will be last, but they're coming. Oh, as soon as they're done with this, they're the last domino to fall in the Middle East. And yet, I mean, doesn't anybody out there other than me see the absurdity of this? I know there's a few because I've met and I've talked to you, but by and large, this question's posed to the general public. My God, I hope you're getting an education here today on the absurdity so that you understand when the government's lying to you and when they aren't. If you cannot tell when the government is lying to you, you are in deep trouble. They can say anything, and they will, and they have. And that's why nothing's getting fixed in this country. That's why civil liberties are being lost. That's why prices are going up. That's why jobs are down. That's why predatory banks are just eating through people's homes, whether foreclosing on them, whether you paid them off or not. Well, whether or not their affiliation with Al-Qaeda was official through the last 3 decades, the CTC's report confirms that by 2007, an announced merger was made. And here's the merger. This is from page 9 on their CTC, which is the Army's West Point Combating Terrorism Center. We got specific terrorist combat groups trained specifically to combat terrorism when we're the ones putting the terrorists and funding them to all over the place. Isn't that amazing? Well, this is from page 9 of their own PDF. It says, quote, the apparent surge in Libyan recruits traveling to Iraq may be linked the Libyan Islamic fighting group's increasingly cooperative relationship with Al-Qaeda, which culminated in the Libyan, these acronyms, LIFG, Libyan Islamic Fighting Group. I guess it's another way of saying they don't want to tell you that they're Al-Qaeda. So when they don't want you to know they're Al-Qaeda, they call them the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group. And when they're bad, and the reason why we have to take over our airports and have all these lost civil liberties, then they're known as Al-Qaeda. It's the same groups. They play us like fools. It would seem unthinkable then that the U.S. would pick what was the epicenter of terrorism in Libya to make contacts with militants who had carried out 3 decades of terrorism and had even fought directly with U.S. troops across multiple theaters of war, especially after these terrorists officially announced their merger with Al-Qaeda. That is exactly what the United States did. Starting in March 2011, U.S. President Barack Obama appointed Christopher Stevens as the special representative to the Libyan Transitional National Council. That's a big fancy name, isn't it? He's the special representative to the Libyan Transitional National Council. Transitional meaning, we threw over Gaddafi, now we got to put in a new government, don't we? That's democracy, isn't it? I could just swear, I could use expletives that would just freak out the FCC right now when I hear that. When I hear that, the Libyan Transitional National Council. And sent him to, so we sent him, Stevens, who's now dead, died of smoke inhalation, asphyxiation. He said, we didn't send anybody. You and I didn't. I'm sorry. I got to really break that habit. U.S. President Barack Obama appointed Christopher Stevens as special representative to the Libyan Transitional National Council and sent him to Benghazi to coordinate U.S. military, diplomatic, and financial support to a counter-government constituted from Syriza's Al-Qaeda terror battalions and a cadre of U.S.-educated, politically cultivated proxies across the National Transitional Council, known as the NTC. They just love their names, don't they? Eventually, Stevens, the ambassador that recently died, that's what we're talking about today, the embassy attacks on Libya, making a big deal over to this because apparently Al-Qaeda, we use them to overthrow governments, and then when they do something like this, we use them again to justify further sanctions, takeovers. Now maybe we get to put our boots on the ground. 50 Marines were sent up ready to go to Libya just to maintain order, I guess. Well, maintain order. Maybe we should have never put Al-Qaeda in charge of Libya in the first place. We never had this problem with Gaddafi, did we? I mean, maybe way back at some point there was the Libyan embassy, I remember, was under Gaddafi's rule. We had some problems there. I should research that before. I hate talking off the top of my head because sometimes you get these facts incorrect. There are so many facts. I'm sure you forgive me. I'm one of the few people that actually care enough to look into this and read to you that right now all the newspapers are lying to you, saying that Al-Qaeda terrorists that were used in Libya to overthrow Gaddafi are now suddenly some unknown group. Even our CIA doesn't understand who this. Oh, we're not sure who's clear. It's not clear who's behind these attacks in Libya. It's not clear. You put them in power, you moron. You're the CIA. How could you not know? I mean, seriously, how freaking stupid do you think we are? No, never mind. We are pretty freaking stupid, aren't we? We really are as a nation. Yeah, it's just the way it is. Anyhow, eventually Stevens' mission would become a success. Eventually, this is great. It would become a success. Ambassador Stevens, according NATO-backed terrorists, overran the Libyan government, overthrowing it in Tripoli, brutalizing the cities of Bani, Walid, and Sirte, with the help of several months of aerial bombardments from NATO, who, remember, President Barack Obama said, "I don't need permission from Congress. I got the support of NATO." You know, that's treason. People, if you guys were educated and aware, you would understand that the president cannot tell Congress he gets the authority from another foreign country. NATO powers, right? Treason. You guys don't even know what to get upset over anymore, honest to God. How was that Packer game last night? I don't care. Honestly, I just said that to just kind of rub it in your face. You guys know what the Packers score was, but you don't know what the next round of QE3 is going to do to you. You don't understand why you lost your jobs in this country, why you can't get a job. But you do understand that you can get food stamps, can't you? Oh, everybody's going to be on the dole. Everybody's going to be getting food stamps. That's right. We got it's close to 47 million Americans right now dependent on food stamps. You know what that means? That means 47 million Americans, their mommy and daddy is now the U.S. government and the corporate fascists that control that government. There you go. Make yourself dependent on that. Boy, what's wrong with why don't you demand jobs that you can afford to buy food? Why? Because you don't want to work anymore? You're going to be working in slave detention camps soon. Actually, you're poor workers, so they're just going to kill you off and get somebody else more capable. But you know what I mean, right? Right. Well, eventually, we got NATO-backed terrorists overran the Libyan government, overthrowing it in Tripoli, and exterminating or exiling the entire population, which was 10,000 to 30,000 people of Tawarga. I got to pronounce this correctly. Tawarga. There you go. It's a small town. Remember Gaddafi? We had to overthrow him, otherwise 10,000 people were going to die. Do you remember that? A few people that I know that I've spoken to on the subject, they remember, because there are people that read the news out there, honestly. But it's getting to this point that if you can read a newspaper, you're considered a freak, like you're trying to show off your intelligence. Most people, it's unfashionable to be intelligent. It's good to be stupid. Yeah, it's good to be stupid now. It's fashionable. I don't need to know anything about anything, do I? Nope. Stupid. Ugh. Okay, it's really hard for me to report on this today. Why? Because it's just the insanity. My fellow Americans were being lied to all the time, day in, day out. You wonder why things are messed up. You wonder why 53% of college graduates are without jobs. You wonder why only 24% of the jobs that exist are decent. The rest suck. Yeah, that's just the way it is. You want to go work at Jimmy John's or Kinko's or Walmart? That's your future, honey. Well, I don't need to. I met a girl the other day. I'm getting laid off. The place is closing. I don't know what to do. Well, we should have paid attention decades ago. Now we're just going to have to sit in this. Tell you what, I'm going to take a commercial break. I'm going to read about, well, here, let me just get through this because it's on topic so that I don't want to switch topics actually here. Not in midstream. Okay, so Ambassador Stevens murderers. Despite the CIA saying it's not clear who, according to the ABC News report, it's not clear who led these attacks. Well, Ambassador Stevens' murderers tied directly to U.S.-backed terrorists in Syria. Here we go. Entire brigades fighting the Syrian government are led by Libyan International Freedom Group terrorists. Al-Qaeda with another name. There you go. And include within their ranks Saudi-inspired Wahhabi extremists. Sorry, just waving hi to people walking by. We're broadcasting outside right here on the sidewalk here, and just occasionally people walk by and they wave hi. So you gotta wave hi to them. So anyhow, now I gotta read this whole paragraph over. Okay. Look, entire brigades fighting the Syrian government are led by Libyan Al-Qaeda or just Wahhabi extremists, and their ranks include the Saudi-inspired Wahhabi extremists. These are the very extremists who surrounded and attacked the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, leading to the death of Ambassador Stevens. Reuters, which is a newspaper, in case some people didn't know, in their article, explained that Libyan fighters joined Syrian revolt, reported that Mahdi al-Harati, a powerful militia chief from Libya's western mountains, who is actually a militant of the U.S., British, and UN-listed terrorist organization, the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, now leads a unit in Syria made up mainly of Syrians, but also including some foreign fighters, including 20 senior members of his own Libyan rebel unit. Reuters would go on to explain the Libyans aiding the Syrian rebels included specialists in communications, logistics, humanitarian issues, and heavy weapons, and that they operate training bases teaching fitness and battlefield tactics. It's amazing. All right. Well, today we're clarifying that the recent attack on Libya and the Libyan embassy where Ambassador Stevens died was not an uncertain, unclear attack, as the CIA chief explained. We know exactly who, what, and why, and we're going to report that. I'll be right back. I'm Michael Wordsworth. You're listening to Breaking Down the News. Don't go away. There's more to come. You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. The kitchen is the heart of the home, but at Monsanto, we're a megalithic agricultural group attempting to destroy farmers all across your country. We bring you horrible foods that attack your stomach lining, DNA, give you kidney and liver failure. Monsanto, bringing Franken foods to your family at home. Don't you just hate us? Say no to GMO. Are you tired of commercials always telling you that you're tired when you know you're tired because you wake up early and go to bed late and every moment in between is spent trying to figure out how you're going to make that next dollar? Well, you're not alone. Millions of Americans are walking around in a sleep-deprived, zombie-like state amplified by psych meds and pharmaceuticals found in their drinking water. So just be glad you're not one of them, unless you are, in which case I'm sorry you had to hear this. But wait, there's more. If we keep at this current pace, we will surely lose our democratic republic and soon be standing in food lines for the poisonous rations the new totalitarian government will hand out. Don't delay, get involved, get informed. And now, live from River West Radio, the man with words worth listening to, your host, Michael Wordsworth. The Libyan embassy was attacked. Ambassador Stevens died. CIA says we're not sure. News media is making big hype stink about it, saying, "Oh, we're not. Well, how did this happen? Who did this?" It was the Muslim extremists that not we, the U.S. government and NATO forces. You and I were not responsible for this. We don't run the country. I keep forgetting that. It's an old habit. It's a nice idea to think that you actually have part in the country and that you make decisions, but we don't. We simply don't. Decisions are made for us. Well, Reuters concedes that the ongoing battle has nothing to do with democracy, but instead is purely a sectarian campaign aimed at pushing out Syria's minorities, perceived to be oppressing Sunni Muslims. All right, look, to reach Syria, Libyan fighters must cross the Mediterranean Sea and enter via Turkey, or cross Egypt, Israel, and enter via Jordan. The government of Syria has threatened Libya in a conceivable manner, making Libya's campaign an intolerable act of military aggression. Worst of all, the NATO-installed government in Tripoli has officially approved of supporting military operations in distant Syria. It's true. Like, basically, if you look at Libya, Libya's on the left, Egypt's in the middle. Then you have Israel on the right, Jordan, Lebanon, and then Syria. So it is kind of interesting. They had to travel by sea to get to Benghazi. It is kind of, now that I look at the map, it's true. In November 2011, the Telegraph, the London Telegraph, which is a newspaper in London, and London is another country. Remember the War of 1776? Yeah, we fought okay, yeah. Okay, good. You guys know where London is? You know what the United Kingdom is? I know many of you do out there, but I'm just being like, I just wonder what people know. I wonder if you even comprehend what I'm telling you today. Please, geez, call in for... Anyhow, the Telegraph in their article states, and I quote, leading Libyan Islamists met Free Syrian Army opposition group. The report says, Abdul Hakim Belhadi, head of Tripoli Military Council and the former leader of the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, met with Free Syrian Army leaders in Istanbul and on the border with Turkey, said a military official working with Mr. Belhaj. I can't even pronounce his name. Belhaj. That's it, Belhaj. Mustafa Abdul Jalil, the interim Libyan president, sent him there. Another Telegraph article says, quote, Libya's new rulers offer weapons to Syrian rebels, would admit that, and I quote here, Syrian rebels held secret talks with Libya's new authorities on Friday, aiming to secure weapons and money for their insurgency against President Bashar al-Assad's regime. The Daily Telegraph has learned. At the meeting, which was held in Istanbul and included Turkish officials, the Syrians requested assistance from the Libyan representatives and were offered arms and potentially volunteers. There is something being planned to send weapons and even Libyan fighters to Syria, said a Libyan source, speaking on condition of anonymity. There is a military intervention on the way. Within a few weeks, you will see. Later that month, some 600 Libyan terrorists would be reported to have entered Syria to begin combat operations, and as recently as last month, CNN, whose Ivan Watson accompanied terrorists over the Turkish-style Syrian border and into Aleppo, revealed that indeed foreign fighters were among the militants, particularly Libyans. It was admitted that, quote, meanwhile, residents of the village where the Syrian Falcons were headquartered said they were fighters of several North African nationalities, also serving with the brigade's ranks. A volunteer Libyan fighter has also told CNN he intends to travel from Turkey to Syria within days to add a platoon of Libyan fighters to armed movement. CNN also added, on Wednesday, CNN's crew met a Libyan fighter who had crossed into Syria from Turkey with 4 other Libyans. The fighter wore full camouflage and was carrying a Kalashnikov rifle. He said more Libyan fighters were on their way. The foreign fighters, and now the CIA says that they don't know who's clearly behind this when you got CNN's own crew reporting that they're meeting with this as these Muslim extremists are coming together dressed in carrying a Russian-made rifle and wearing full camouflage. Like, we're on our way to attack the Libyan embassy. You know, no big deal. How are you? I'm fine. You know, it's no big deal. Your news will report tomorrow that nobody knows who did this. It's uncertain. We want the people of America to know Al-Qaeda is behind this. We hate you people. We will kill you people. Serious, there are Muslim factions out there that really do hate us. I mean, they really do. They would blow up stuff if they could. It's just they're so busy fighting their own internal battles, they haven't time yet to turn the guns back on us. And especially, they must be really confused when we send them money and arms and support and create no-fly zones for them. It really must. These Americans, I do not understand them. They know we hate them. And yet they give us arms and money, and they tell us to go take over countries, and we do. We took over Egypt. We're trying to take over Syria right now. We're taking over Libya. We got Libya, it's no problem. It's very strange to us why we openly announce that we hate America and want to blow you up, and yet you keep giving us money. Well, I'm saying this in that there's some comedic value at the same time. It's incredibly horrible, incredibly horrible. I'm sure they're confused. Our supposed enemy is very confused. All right, look, I need to take a little break. It's going to be a long Friday afternoon here. So let's break out with this. We're going to go, let's interview David Rockefeller. It's the best we could do right now. How's that? All right, we're going to interview David Rockefeller, educate you a little bit on foreign geopolitical, financial situations, and then we'll be right back. I'm Michael Wordsworth. You're listening to Breaking Down the News on this beautiful Friday afternoon. We'll be right back. You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. Once again, the Bilderberg meeting is happening today in Chantilly, Virginia, where many of Europe's top bankers and technocrats are gathering in secret to plan the global economy for the next 12 months. To get a deeper view of this, Breaking Down the News has met with David Rockefeller in Virginia. Mr. Rockefeller, thank you for joining us.
Yes, of course. I'm sure this is a big moment in your pathetic life as a news talk show host.
Now, do you prefer that I call you Evil or just Mr. Rockefeller or David Evil Rockefeller?
Ooh, that sounds good, yes. Call me David Evil Rockefeller. I like the sound of that.
Very well, Mr. Evil Rockefeller. Now, Bilderberg, the not-so-secret meeting taking place this week.
Now, hold on there a second. We are grateful to the Washington Post, Time Magazine, and other great publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. But now since the New York Times betrayed me, I would like to retract my praise for the cowardly media outlets that leaked our little get-togethers to the mainstream. Boo! Hiss! Hiss! It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subjected to the lights of publicity during those years. But the world is more sophisticated and prepared to march toward a world government. The supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national auto-determination practiced in past centuries.
But Mr. Evil.
That's David Evil Rockefeller to you.
My apologies.
No, you should get it right. You're a reporter for Lucifer's sake.
Pardon me, David Evil Rockefeller.
That's better. Normally, we hate to be forced out of the shadows, but some fat bastard keeps blowing a bullhorn at my hotel room all weekend, shouting, the answer to 1984 is 1776 or something like that. I mean, what the Hades does that mean? Well, this unruly blowhard has got the people all up in arms.
Well, yes, the people are revolting.
They most certainly are.
Pardon?
The people, yes, they are most revolting.
No, I meant the people are revolting against these secret meetings taking place now that the public has become aware of them.
Oh, that. Well, of course, but they don't pay attention. They don't listen. Most don't even know who I am or what I do.
That isn't true. Not of the young people these days. They don't see much of a future ahead of them because of men like you and the Bilderberg attendees. The younger generations are starting to really pay attention.
Ah, but that is exactly why I created Justin Bieber. Made him out of some spare parts I had laying around.
I would still say the tide is turning and the people are waking up to your corrupt technocratic system.
This present window of opportunity, during which a truly peaceful and independent world order might be built, will not be open for long. We are on the verge of a global transformation. All we need is the right major crisis, and the nations will accept the new world order.
All right, calm down, calm down. At this year's meeting of the Bilderbergers, you've got some big-time European heavyweights there. Dr. Joseph Ackerman, Angela Merkel, Herman Van Rompuy, all meeting with you to figure out what to do with the economy for the next 12 months. Now, if Greece is to leave the Eurozone, the rumor is that the Bilderbergs are panicking.
I don't think Greece is going to leave the euro. Germany doesn't want it to leave the euro, and Greece signed off on this memorandum with Troika, as it's called, which is effectively turning their sovereignty over to outside forces, and it's up to Germany, not the Greek people. They lost their sovereignty. I don't see that happening. It's not up to them. It's not their choice. Germany wants to keep Greece, to keep the euro cheap. If it wasn't for Greece, the Deutschmark would trade like the Swiss franc. It would be 20 or 30% higher, and their whole export model would crumble. Right now, Germany is making it out like bandits. They're making money the old-fashioned way.
By earning it?
No, by stealing it. Since the reunification of Germany, something that wouldn't have happened without the euro, Germany has become a superpower once again.
Basically, it's a leveraged buyout. All the assets of Greece are being taken by outsiders. And those are good income-producing assets like shipping, tourism, lotteries.
You are forgetting the gold mines. Don't forget the gold mines.
Right, gold mines. Those were privatized and sold off, correct?
Yes, approximately 111 tons of gold. I'm going to melt it all down and make little figurines of Justin Bieber that the kids can pray to.
But the IMF is bankrupt and they're lending money to Greece? They had to borrow trillions to execute a leveraged buyout.
Ah, but the real trick is getting the Greeks to sign on to this debt. Get it? We borrow the money to lend to them and then take over their sovereignty as we buy out their assets. It's brilliant, simply brilliant.
And then those assets go back to the IMF creditors.
They want the fees. Christine Lagarde says, just give me the fees. Give me my salary and you can rob the Greeks blind for all I care.
Evil, truly evil.
That is why I am called David Evil Rockefeller.
So it's like Mitt Romney when he was at Bain Capital. They just look for small companies and gut them. And in a like manner, Greece is just a small country that you can seize with a hostile takeover.
It is a Jimmy Goldsmith model, done on a bigger scale. Same thing. You pledge the assets of a country like Greece to secure loans to take over the country. Sell the assets, keep the difference, make lots of money. The people lose their sovereignty, their jobs, and I get to add another platinum-covered toilet in my horse stable.
So these Bilderberg meetings are a great way for you and the world's leaders to meet behind the scenes with no transparency and just basically decide the fate of any given economy.
Well, yes, and up until now it was a secret, but no matter. It was no coincidence that we took Ireland, Greece, Portugal, and then Spain in that order. This year, the big question is, where do we go next? France? Maybe UK is an interesting choice. It's similar to how you peasants buy houses, but we get entire countries for pennies on the dollar, you see.
The IMF since the 60s has preyed on Africa, then South America, then Southeast Asia.
Yes, well, while America was obsessed with Iraq, we were very busy taking over those regions.
But China threw you a curveball. They had a different model.
Well, China did good business, and that is inconsistent with the Bilderberger policy. However, the U.S. can't really tangle with China because China is now the U.S. biggest creditor, and the whole thing is a sticky situation.
I would like to read you a quote from Bill Moyers about you. May I?
Ooh, yes. If it's about me, Mommy always talked about me and I liked it. Talk about me, talk about me.
David Evil Rockefeller is the most conspicuous representative today of the ruling class, a multinational fraternity of men who shaped the global economy and managed the flow of its capital. Rockefeller was born into it, and he has made the most of it. But some critics see a vast international conspiracy he considers a circumstance of life and just another day's work. In the world of David Rockefeller, it's hard to tell where business ends and politics begins.
It is. It really is. Some days I wonder how history will look back on my takeover of the United States, and they will ask that very question and just don't know how I would answer even now.
So you admit that you want to take over the United States?
For more than a century, ideological extremists at either end of the political spectrum have seized upon well-publicized incidents, such as my encounter with Castro, to attack the Rockefeller family for inordinate influence they claim we wield over American political and economic institutions. Some even believe they are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty, and I'm proud of it.
Wait, didn't you write that in your personal memoirs?
Ooh, you're a smart one, Mr. Wordsworth.
Well, thank you, I guess.
No, I hate that. Hate it. The second we gain control of America, people like you will have to go. And by go, I mean disappeared with black hoods over your heads. Now that is scary. You should be scared. Very scared.
I am not afraid.
Oh, you will be. You
well.
This has been an exclusive interview with David Eagle Rockefeller in Chantilly, Virginia. I'm Michael Wordsworth. Back in a moment.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
This is Breaking Down the News, bringing you headlines that should have made the front pages. Streaming live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3:30 p.m. Central Standard. And now, live from River West Radio, the man with Wordsworth listening to, your host, Michael Wordsworth. All right, I am back. I am back to say that I need another break. Reading about Libyan terrorists being perpetrated by our own government to attack the embassy, and then I need a break. So I tell you what, I'm going to go and we're going to do a special FBI interview real quick here. And we'll come back and talk more about Libya. And then I got to get through Ben Bernanke and the potential QE3. I guess I'm going to go ahead with more stimulus. But then we got to talk about how the banks are not loaning that money out to the American people, so there is no stimulus. That's why you don't see any stimulus. They spent trillions. You're going to owe it, but you don't get any of it. It's just the way it goes. All right, we'll be right back. Please enjoy this interview with the FBI. You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. Every day, people wake up all over the world and hear commercials like this one, with soft music and a soothing announcer's voice telling you how great some big corporation's new technology will help you and your family. But it is important to remember, these companies could give a flying f*** about you or your family. That's why Breaking Down the News has made this commercial to counter their commercials. Don't be fooled by them. The battle is to gain control of your mind through media propaganda. Just say no to evil corporations and their slick computer graphics designed to brainwash viewers. Vote no with your dollars, and we will regain the health of our nation, one consumer at a time. The FBI headquarters is a huge modern building in the middle of downtown. Cars and trucks drive past the front entrance on this very active street, and these doors will lead us to the elevators that will take us to the office of Deputy Director Hank Polarank.
Welcome to the FBI headquarters. Can I help you?
Yes, I have an appointment with Deputy Director Polarank.
And your name is?
Michael Wordsworth from RiverWestRadios.com, breaking down the news show.
Michael who? No.
The staff at the FBI was professional and courteous as they greeted me, and after a few security complications were smoothed out, I was soon able to get in to do my interview. Michael Wordsworth from Breaking Down the News.
Hey, come on in, take a seat.
And it was an interesting interview. How many terrorist plots has the FBI foiled in the last few years?
We've been busy, very busy with ongoing investigations. It's hard to say off the top of my head. 10, maybe 12?
And out of those 10 or 12 incidents, how many of those were not terrorist plots instigated by the FBI?
None actually.
Not one.
Well, the underwear bomber, that wasn't us.
But it came to light that the underwear bomber was forced onto the plane by a well-dressed man, and he didn't go through security. That wasn't the FBI.
No. Might have been Secret Service. I think they handled that one.
I'd like to quote an article from the New York Times. Can I?
Sure, go ahead.
This is an article by David K. Shipler, published April 29, 2012, and I quote, "But all these dramas were facilitated by the FBI, whose undercover agents and informers posed as terrorists offering a dummy missile, fake C4 explosives, a disarmed suicide vest, and rudimentary training. Suspects naively played their parts until they were arrested. When an Oregon college student, Mohammed Osman Mohammed, thought of using a car bomb to attack a festive Christmas tree lighting ceremony in Portland, the FBI provided a van loaded with 55-gallon drums of inert material, harmless blasting caps, a detonator cord, and a gallon of diesel fuel to make the van smell flammable. An undercover FBI agent even did the driving, with Mr. Muhammad in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
To trigger the bomb, the student punched a number into a cell phone and got no boom, only a bust. What do you say to that?"
What's your point?
My point is it sounds like we really don't have a terrorism problem in America beyond those plots the FBI makes up itself.
What? How did you get in here? Agent Smith.
Be right in. What is it, sir? Hey, wait. How did you get in here? I don't believe this. He doesn't have clearance, sir. You'll have to come with me.
He doesn't have clearance? How did he get past you?
He snuck in here when I went to pay for the pizza delivery. I was there for a while. I wanted exact change.
Okay, hey, thanks for the interview. That's all I need now.
Sir, stop. Come back here.
He doesn't have clearance?
Thank you. Talk soon. You guys take care.
Security, we have a gate jumper headed for the elevators.
And whereas this interview did not yield all the answers I wanted, I did get to state my point. And as I was leaving the FBI building, I had the realization that making my point was worth the trip. You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. All right, thank you for that break. I appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed the FBI little spiel there. I always enjoy that one. I got to make some more of those, actually. They're cute. They're educational. They're funny. What can you say? Cute, educational, and funny. Well, what isn't cute and what isn't funny is the stuff I'm reporting on today. It's always like that. I got to read you guys. We're talking about Libya today. We're extensively going over the attacks on the Libyan embassy. A white guy died and the whole world's up in arms, at least the media is. I mean, tens of thousands of African Americans indigenous to Africa. Not African Americans, Africans from Sudan, Congo, Sudanese. They have been killed by Muslim extremists. And that was why we had to get rid of Gaddafi, because he was going to kill 10,000 people. And right now, over 10,000 people have died easily on this thing. One white guy in the embassy gets killed, and we're all freaked out now. I mean, it's not a black and white thing I'm trying to make that issue out of. I'm trying to say just how ridiculous, how utterly ridiculous the news can play us like fools when we are ignorant of what they're saying. We don't understand the lies. I should ask this gentleman here. What do you think? He's leaving. Whatever. It would have been nice to get the opinion. All right, so let me just read this article in my typical news anchor fashion, all right? Here, I got to do my news anchor news little music thing whenever I do this here. It kind of sets the mood. Ready? All right, here you go. This from The Independent, found at independent.co.uk. Their headline reads, "Revealed." It's an exclusive inside story of U.S. envoy's assassination. America was warned of embassy attack, but did nothing. The killings of the U.S. ambassador to Libya and 3 of his staff were likely to have been the result of a serious and continuing security breach, The Independent can reveal. American officials believe the attack was planned, but Chris Stevens had been back in the country only a short while, and the details of his visit to Benghazi where he and his staff died were meant to be confidential. The U.S. administration is now facing a crisis in Libya. I need some more coffee. Hang on. Overcaffeinated coffee. There we go. The U.S. administration is now facing a crisis in Libya. Sensitive documents have gone missing from the consulate in Benghazi, and the supposedly secret location of the safe house in the city where the staff had retreated came under sustained mortar attack. Other such refuges, the plural of refuge, a safe place. Other such safe places across the country are no longer deemed safe. There you go. Some of the missing papers from the consulate are said to list names of Libyans who are working with Americans, putting them potentially at risk from extremist groups, while some of the other documents are said to relate to oil contracts. Oil contracts? Wonder if there's anything suspicious there. According to senior diplomatic sources, the U.S. State Department had credible information 48 hours before mobs charged the consulate in Benghazi and the embassy in Cairo that American missions may be targeted, but no warnings were given to diplomats to go on high alert and lockdown, under which movement is severely restricted. Mr. Stevens had been on a visit to Germany, Austria, and Sweden, and had just returned to Libya when the Benghazi trip took place, with the U.S. Embassy's security staff deciding that the trip could be undertaken safely. 8 Americans, some from the military, were wounded in the attack, which claimed the lives of Mr. Stevens, Sean Smith, an information officer, and 2 U.S. Marines. All staff from Benghazi have now been moved to the capital, Tripoli, and those whose work is deemed to be non-essential may be flown out of Libya. In the meantime, a Marine Corps' fast anti-terrorism reaction team has already arrived in the country from a base in Spain, and other personnel are believed to be on the way. Additional units have been put on standby to move to other states where their presence may be needed in the outbreak of anti-American fury triggered by publicity about a film which demeaned the Prophet Muhammad. A mob of several hundred stormed the U.S. Embassy in the Yemeni capital, Sana'a, yesterday. Other missions which have been put out on special alert include most all of those in the Middle East, as well as in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Armenia, Burundi, and Zambia. How do you like that? And Zambia. Gee. Zambia. Sorry, not Zambia. Zambia would be a place where all the zombies live, wouldn't it? Zambia. There we go. It's a country in Africa. Senior officials are increasingly convinced, however, that the ferocious nature of the Benghazi attack, in which rocket-propelled grenades were used, indicated it was not the result of a spontaneous anger due to the video, called Innocence of Muslims. Patrick Kennedy, Undersecretary at the State Department, said he was convinced the assault was planned due to its extensive nature and the proliferation of weapons. There is growing belief that the attack was in revenge for the killing in a drone strike in Pakistan of Mohammed Hassan Qaid, an al-Qaeda operative who was, as his nom de guerre, his other name, Abu Yahya Libby suggests, from Libya, in time for the anniversary of the September 11 attacks. Yeah, there you go, just in time. Senator Bill Nelson, a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, said, and I quote, "I'm asking my colleagues on the committee to immediately investigate what role al-Qaeda or its affiliates may have played in the attack and to take appropriate action." I laugh because what role al-Qaeda, why don't you ask yourself, why did you use al-Qaeda to overthrow Gaddafi in Libya? Yeah, well, there you go. According to security sources, the consulate had been given a health check in preparation for any violence connected to the 9/11 anniversary. In the event, the perimeter was breached within 15 minutes of an angry crowd starting to attack it at around 10 p.m. on Tuesday night. There was, according to witnesses, little defense put up by the 30 or more local guards meant to protect the staff. Ali Fattori, a 59-year-old accountant who lives nearby, said, and I quote, "The security people just all ran away, and the people in charge were the young men with guns and bombs." There you go. Wissam Boumediene, the commander of the Tripoli government, sanctioned Libya's Shield Brigade, effectively a police force for Benghazi, maintained that it was anger over the Muhammad video which made the guards abandon their post. This quote came from them. There were definitely people from the security forces who let the attack happen because they were themselves offended by the film. They would absolutely put their loyalty to the Prophet over the consulate. The deaths are all nothing compared to the insulting of the Prophet Muhammad. Well, Mr. Stevens, it is believed, was left in the building by the rest of the staff after they failed to find him in dense smoke caused by a blaze which engulfed the building. He was discovered lying unconscious by local people and taken to a hospital, the Benghazi Medical Center, where, according to a doctor, Zayed Abu Ziyad, said that he died from smoke inhalation. An 8-strong American rescue team was sent from Tripoli and taken by troops under Captain Faith Al-Abidi of the February 17 Brigade to the secret safe house to extract around 40 U.S. staff members. The building then came under fire from heavy weapons. And that was their safe house that they were going to. Yeah, my phone's ringing, which means that the phone's back on here. Who do we... I'm sorry. I interrupt this article to bring you my phone news, which apparently it's back on. That's pretty good. I don't know how that happened, but thank goodness. Libyan reinforcements eventually arrived and the attacks ended. News had arrived to Mr. Stevens, and his body was picked up from the hospital and taken back to Tripoli with the other dead and the survivors. Mr. Stevens' mother, that's Ambassador Stevens, that is, Mary Camonday, spoke of her son yesterday. She said, "He did love what he did, and he did a very good job with it. He could have done a lot of other things, but this was his passion. I have a hole in my heart," she said. "You know what, ma'am? Your son died because your government was complicit in allowing him to die." There you go. She should be angry, but there is... Who knows? Maybe she is. I mean, it's not like you don't expect the news to let her say that. Global anger has occurred, though. The protests have spread. Let me just go over... I'll break it down by country. Here you go. In Yemen, the furor, the anger across the Middle East over the controversial film about the Prophet Muhammad is now threatening to get out of control. In Sana'a, the Yemeni capital, yesterday around 5,000 demonstrators attacked the U.S. Embassy, leaving at least 15 people injured. Young protesters shouted, "We sacrifice ourselves for you, messenger of gods!" And they smashed the windows of security offices and burned at least 5 cars, witness said. Sounds like our college students, actually. At least the ones in France, Greece. Okay, now in Egypt, this is what you got going on in Egypt. Egypt's Islamist President Mohamed Morsi said yesterday, condemning the attack in Benghazi that killed the U.S. ambassador in a speech in Brussels. I'll tell you what, let me just, I'm going to take a 2-second break here, come back and read this. Sorry, I got to do this. It's important. I'll be right back. You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. Every day, people wake up all over the world and hear commercials like this one, with soft music and a soothing announcer's voice telling you how great some big corporation's new technology will help you and your family. But it is important to remember, these companies could give a flying f*** about you or your family. That's why Breaking Down the News has made this commercial to counter their commercials. Don't be fooled by them. The battle is to gain control of your mind through media propaganda. Just say no to evil corporations and their slick computer graphics designed to brainwash viewers. Vote no with your dollars, and we will regain the health of our nation, one consumer at a time.
And now it is time to make light of the issues.
Economists. That's right, economists. You know they're about the most useless thing. They're paid to be wrong 2/3 of the time. And I'm telling you, our economy, they keep telling us our economy is getting better, right? Right? I mean, what a joke. It's like Hitler reporting back to the German people that he's winning the war. Isn't it? Isn't it? I mean, just look at the jobs market right now. It's just ridiculous, huh? We must be having a jobless recovery. A jobless recovery. You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
The following program is brought to you in living color.
This is Breaking Down the News, bringing you headlines that should have made the front pages. Streaming live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3:30 p.m. Central Standard. All right, we're back. I am Michael Wordsworth. You're listening to Breaking Down the News on this Friday edition. We have a horrible situation up north in Clark County. Thank goodness Pamela Jaffe is on the case. They've erected a cell phone tower, and for many of you that don't know, these towers are damaging. They put out EMF waves that affect the minds, affect the bodies, affect nature in general. The whole problem could be solved with a simple $35 part. Pamela, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Mike. And I do want to get the word out because most people are not aware of the dangers of these cell towers. They see them go up, and they don't know the problem. And I do want to say that my city of Owen has been working with me, and we did pass a very comprehensive cell tower ordinance. So I do applaud the city, but they're not getting any cooperation from the cell tower owners within the city.
So you do have the support of the city council at this moment?
Yes, I do.
Oh, thank goodness.
And I've been very, very grateful. They've worked with me. I worked with the lawyer to draft the ordinance, and they have been very helpful. It's the cell tower people who are in total disrespect of any of the codes, ordinances out there, and totally disrespectful of the people and animals that they're harming. And this dovetails into the whole entire electrical pollution problem, where the whole electrical grid is just not able to support the electricity that's out there right now. And so electricity in general is, we're being harmed from it. But I'll talk to that in a minute.
Please.
The problem with cell towers, one of the problems, there's two problems. One of them is that the strobe light on top, that flashing light every 1.5 seconds, it creates a 2.5 million hertz cycle, and the normal electrical cycle is 60, so 2.5 million is a long way from 60.
Wow, and that is a lot. That's a huge difference.
A long way from 60. And what happens is that our electrical wiring is so bad that every 1.5 seconds, 10,000 volts goes up to the strobe light, and then every time it flashes, this transient or spike in the 60 cycle wave, this 2.5 million spike, comes down on the electrical wiring. Well, the wiring normally can't handle it for reasons I'll explain later. And so it goes into the ground, it goes, on the general wiring instead of being neutralized. It's actually strong enough when it's on the wiring in your house, according to an electrical engineer I've been in contact with, to penetrate the walls. And so if it can penetrate, the plaster in the walls, what is it doing, after it penetrates, the walls? What is it doing to the human body?
Wow.
I have a cat that is very sensitive to the electrical pollution because I did have bad wiring in my house, and she was exposed to it for a long time. I've since rewired my entire house. And when that cell tower went up, me as a veterinarian, I pulled out all the stops and only because I'm a veterinarian. I think my cat is still alive today. And I noticed problems. You know, you have problems sleeping, fatigue, even ringing in the ears, muscle pain. It's a whole gamut of. The bottom line is, what we call an RF choke, which is RF for radio frequency choke. It's a simple $35 part. It's a coil of wires you put around the wiring that's going up to the strobe light, and think of an acid neutralizing a base. I mean, it neutralizes that transient. It's not a big deal to fix it.
A $35 part.
A $35 part.
Who's holding up that part being put up there? I mean, that's the question. You can't get the owners to stick it on there?
Right. I mean, the railroad put the tower up. And they, contracted, obviously, a company. They're in the railroad business, not the cell tower business. So they contracted somebody to put the tower up. And, I've called the railroad, and they really do need to get somebody to teach them public relations.
Which railroad is this?
Canadian National.
Canadian National. Huh.
So I'm also dealing with the foreign company. So, that's just wonderful.
On American soil, of course.
Yes.
Goodness.
And,
yeah. Oh, boy.
And they have been totally disrespectful. I've never been treated more rudely. When I got an electrical engineer on who was certified by the Wisconsin Supreme Court as an expert witness, so they couldn't buffalo him. Of course, since I'm just a veterinarian and not an electrical engineer, I'm different than a box of rocks. And then they kind of started singing a new tone and said that, we'll talk. We need to be good neighbors. We'll get it on. It's like I was.
Okay, one more time, because I really want to slam these guys. The name of it's Canadian Pacific.
Canadian National, CN.
CN. Oh, we've seen them on their little rail cars all the time. The CN logo.
Canadian National.
Okay.
So it never got put up. I talked to somebody who referred me to somebody else in the food chain. And after talking with him a couple times, and we don't know anything about cell towers, and I said, let me give you the name of somebody who does. And then he, after about the third or fourth conversation, and I did actually document the date and the time of every one of these conversations, and when I talked to them and what they told me, I didn't record it, but I wrote it down. He admitted that, if we do it for you, we have to do it for everybody.
And how many?
And I thought, you paid Elgin, Illinois, $11 million in some settlement. So if you got $11 million to throw around to give out to Elgin, Illinois, I think you can afford a $35 part times 300 towers.
300 towers times 35, so we're talking about 900 and about 1,050, something like that. It would cost them $1,000 around to fix
and they
this
threw
problem.
out Elgin, Illinois, $11 million, but they can't put up a $35 cell tower RF choke.
You would think it'd be cheaper from a PR standpoint for them to just do this, $1,000, and then avoid the problem.
You would think, because the cell tower ordinance that the city of Owen passed says if you can't prove that you're in compliance, and believe me,
they're not in compliance. Yeah,
they're not in compliance because the Public Service Commission 113.701 to .705 states it regulates cell towers, and the public, and in there it says it shall not deviate from a 60 cycle hertz, from a 60 cycle sine wave. Electricity from the tower shall not deviate from a 60 cycle sine wave. Well, guess what? 2.5 million is a long way from 60. So the city of Owen, they couldn't force towers to say, okay, now that you're up, you have to put this RF choke on. They went through the back door, and I give the lawyer a lot of credit. He says, on July 1st, every year you have to submit paperwork to prove that you're in compliance with IEEE Standards 519 and Public Service Code Commission 113.701 to .705. You have to prove that you're in compliance, or else it's a $1,000 a day fine.
And that's a county ordinance?
City of Owen.
City ordinance. Yeah, so I wonder.
And it's like the the problem, there was a Telecommunications Act passed in 1996 that basically written by the telecommunications industry that pretty much gave them unlimited powers. We had to make sure when we wrote that ordinance that the word health was not used in that ordinance because it is illegal to sue a cell tower owner if you suffer ill effects from the cell tower on your health. That's the telecommunications wrote that in there, that it is illegal to sue them.
How did that happen? I mean, they built
because
that in.
They bought off everybody on Capitol Hill. How does everything happen?
On the state level, you're saying?
No, this is on a federal level. This is a federal
Telecommunications
Act of 1996.
Of course,
so
gotcha.
They think that they are immune to any regulation, but the Telecommunications Act, thank goodness, did leave the placement and the function up to local control. So there is some zoning ordinance. But if I win, and to me it's not really winning, it's just following the law.
Right.
If I get them to cooperate, then I've set a precedence. And that's the last thing they want is a precedence set.
Oh, Pam, you got to keep on with this because we need that precedence set.
That is the last thing they want. And there's another cell tower in town right by the school, and it's like, oh, great, fry all the kids and teachers' brains. I mean, can you get a worse place for a cell tower than a school?
Can you help me envision this thing? How tall is this tower? Approximately.
I'll tell you, a standard silo is 60, 70 feet, so it's got to be
4 or 5 stories?
Let's see, 250 feet tall, maybe.
And then how far does this electromagnetic frequency broadcast out to affect the health of people and animals around you?
Cows, since I'm a dairy veterinarian, cows are horribly affected by bad electricity. And there was a cell tower run up, and they switched from a rotating beacon, which was fine. I mean, just a simple light, rotating beacon, to these strobe lights. And the production went way down. And
the milk production went down.
Milk production of the cows went way down. They were severely affected because every 1.5 seconds they were getting this 2.5, megahertz transient hitting them, and it can travel for miles. When I say miles, 5, 6, 7 miles.
Okay, that was my question.
And so they put the RF choke on the tower sometime, during the day, and that evening milking. So, I mean, it wasn't even 12 hours. It was maybe like 4 or 5 hours that the RF choke was on the tower. Those cows were up 7 pounds per cow per day.
7 pounds per cow per day.
They went up that evening milking. So if you take, all the milk that the cows produced divided by number of cows, let's say they were on average producing 60 pounds because you have some cows in low lactation, some cows just fresh, whatever. Let's say, just throw out a number, 65 pounds they were milking. That night they went up to 72 on average. They went up 7 pounds, so you can't tell me that this stuff doesn't affect people and animals. I mean, that is documented. I mean, weights are documented because, the milk company picks up the milk and records the weight. So, I mean, there's no question.
And you might not be an electrical engineer, but you are an expert as a veterinarian, and definitely you're qualified to say, hey, this is affecting the production of these animals.
Yeah, it wasn't, my particular practice that this happened, but it's, I've seen the effect on my cat. In terms of
what was
all the different issues.
Your cat wouldn't sleep in a certain area of the house because of this, or was that related to your smart meter?
That's related to my smart meter.
Okay.
That she will not touch a certain area of the house. She stays at least 90% of the time she spends in the room that's catty corner to the smart meter, as far away from that as she can.
Boy, I want to thank you because this is an issue I personally was not aware of, and I know a lot of people. We've heard about cell towers, cell phones, EM pollution, but it's something that we really haven't let sink in how serious of an issue this is. I mean, basically, we're being bombarded.
Horribly serious. We are being irradiated to death by numerous sources. Smart meters are like the second, another whole issue other than cell towers.
Right, you brought that into, I could not believe that. Basically, people, if you're listening out there, Pamela Jaffke's on the line here. She's from Clark County. Cell phone tower went up, and she's saying that, look, it's putting out way too much power. The whole problem can be fixed with the $35 part. But the smart meters are a new type of meter that's put on your homes that is digital and no longer has the little rotating dials. And I wasn't sure if we had replaced ours here in the city, and I went out and looked, and by golly, if they aren't digital meters out there. And thank goodness that Pam brought this to my attention, because the previous property I was sleeping in, I had one about 8 feet from my head on the back side of the wall. And Pam, I'm not kidding. I would put my head down on the pillow, and I thought I would hear music. I thought I was going insane, because when I put my head up off the pillow, I couldn't hear the music anymore. And I don't mean like an actual audio sound.
Your head was being irradiated. I mean, it sends out radio waves. And besides the electrical pollution problem, there's a privacy problem with those, because they're like little FM radios. Police are using them as an invasion of privacy. It's illegal search and seizure. It goes against our Constitution.
Okay. Now, do you know how that works? Are you saying that it actually can pick up audio? I know you can transmit data through power lines.
The police department they were busting people for, well, they were picking up like electrical usage, I think, for growing marijuana. But I don't know exactly how but it sends out a radio wave just like an FM radio, and they were picking up. And I don't know exactly what they were picking up, but, they're using it as they were making arrests. They were getting search warrants based on what they were finding from the signals they were picking up from the smart meters on your home. And I'm sorry, that's wiretapping.
That is wiretapping. I mean, that's an incredible, I believe that's a violation of the Fourth Amendment.
Yeah, illegal search and seizure.
Illegal search, and it's illegal because, look, how would you...
I don't have any permission to have somebody, I didn't say you could eavesdrop on me.
Right. I detest that attitude that some people have where they say, well, look, if you weren't doing anything, you wouldn't be concerned. And I'm like, are you serious? You have why?
No sense of privacy?
Well, here's the thing. We know if we put microphones inside the senator, congressman, even the police chiefs, a lot of police chiefs in this country are the drug dealers in your towns. That's you got to ask yourself, how do these drugs get in? Why do these low-level guys always get arrested, but the main guys that bring it in never get brought down? And, well, we basically know the answer to that because they're untouchable.
So, besides smart meters basically frying us, basically I'm now living in a microwave.
Oh, gee. I mean, that's what it is. It's a microwave transmitter. Is that the best way to look at that?
I've actually got some information. It transmits, it's actually got like a signal like an FM radio would have a signal.
Right. Okay.
But let me find another. But it's mind-boggling that these smartphones or these smart meters, that they were put on without any regard for safety, without any regard for anything.
Well, right. Nothing. Not the constitutional considerations, not the health considerations. It almost makes you wonder. I mean, they get all bent out of shape for the dumbest things these days. But we actually have these death towers. Let's just call them death towers. Because that's what they are. I mean, they're basically killing us, slowly affecting our brains, our DNA. I bet you.
Health.
Yeah.
But. Smart meters are directly connected to the wiring in customers' homes. The radio frequency energy they emit not only travels to the air, but is conducted onto the wiring and surrounds customers in their homes. Reports of sleep disturbances, headaches, dizziness, nausea, fatigue, shortness of breath, heart palpitations, ringing in the ears. I never had ringing in the ears till a couple years ago. I'm not that old.
Yeah.
Memory loss and difficulty concentrating are widespread.
And a lot of people out there are going to their doctors trying to get some sort of magic pill to solve this problem, when actually you just need to remove the microwave oven outside your house that's blasting your brain.
Basically, yes.
I should laugh, but I mean, it's laugh or cry. You take your pick.
Yeah, and I've been in contact with my utility, Xcel Energy. I have, asked to have the smart meter removed. They look at me like I'm nuts. And I said, well, and I even quoted the Public Service Commission code that says, first of all, the Public Service Commission said, well, it's up to the utilities as to what kind of meter. And I said, well, guess what? According to your own Public Service Commission code, it states right there that you can override, any law, that has been written if the health of the consumer mandates a change in the law. So I said, you've got the power to tell the utilities that if the smart meters are harming people, that they need to go back to analog meters. Well, it took them a while to answer me because they were probably trying to think of somehow. And they answered back, and it was a form letter, and it said the same thing, that we cannot help you. The utilities have the final say in what kind of meters. And I thought, God help us.
This becomes a situation again where it's not we're fighting for the control of our local government and to maintain, and by control, I don't mean from a control freak standpoint. My goodness, Pamela here is just trying to keep from her cat, herself, her fellow neighbors from the tower by the school. This is something where just like, I mean, people, if they say they care, you can't bombard children with, and nobody signed a waiver, nobody gave permission for this. Pam, do you suspect that this is one of those regional government issues where we're getting legislation and policy handed down to us from some sort of foreign? I mean, obviously it's foreign. They're coming from Canada. I don't know who owns that railroad, but
yeah, Canadian National owns, the cell tower. The Public Service Commission has been funded by fees from the utilities instead of being funded by the general fund here in Wisconsin. So who do you think they answer to?
The guy with the money.
That pay them.
Yep.
They're paid by the utilities. Their answer to the utilities. I mean, we are just, a fly on an elephant's butt to them.
Right.
And they are not, for 30 years, they have let the electrical companies in terms of the electrical pollution, but some people refer to it as straight voltage. I hate that term because it implies that nobody's responsible, and that's a terrible term. It's electrical pollution.
Yes.
They, the people they're supposed to protect are so far down the line that we're not even in the same picture. They are owned, bought, and paid for, and I don't care if I get in trouble. I don't care if anybody from the Public Service Commission hears this. I have the letters to back up what I'm saying, what you wrote to me. The last thing you care about is my concerns. You are bought and paid for by the utilities. And I don't care. You can sue me if you want. I'd love it.
And when I hear the incongruency, if they're willing to shell out $11 million to cover some liability issue, but then at the same time they won't take the preventative measures from the get-go when they put up these towers, sounds to me, and I'm just inclined to be cynical this way, maybe there's a deeper reason for this. Maybe there is this is something that they wanted in place. I mean, obviously, you're telling, I mean, I know you wouldn't tell me, but there's no scientists out there, no electrical engineers that understand the damaging health effects of both smart meters and cell towers.
There's thousands.
There's thousands. So why are their voices silent on this issue? That's what I want to know. I mean, if they're listening.
They've tried. I mean, Dave Stetzer, he has gone before the legislature so many times. He's gone to the utilities. People have been fighting this issue for years, decades. And there's just so much money involved on the side of the utilities and the side of the telecommunications industry. And it's been slapped around so much you know.
But is it a situation, are they just trying to save money, or is there any way, I mean, how can we put up, I mean, I know there's a lot of poisonous things everywhere, but I mean, what's the agenda behind this? Why would a company do this? I mean, we're their paying customers. Don't we use cell phones to buy their electricity? And
it's all money. And again, you know, they don't want to be regulated. I mean, the telecommunications industry, that's why they wrote their own law to make sure that they're not regulated. You know, it's mind-boggling. It all comes down to money. You know, let's you know, the third leg of the stool. We have the cell towers, we have the smart meters, and we have just plain old electrical pollution that, you know, I've also, you know, been fighting. The utilities are allowed to shove electricity into the ground instead of put on a wire and take it back to the substation.
Okay.
The electrons always want to go home. They're homing pigeons. So they're going to find a way home. So when you shove the electricity in the ground, they're going to eventually use the ground to get back to the substation. My house happens to be in the path of a lot of ground current.
And that's a non-directed current when it returns versus going through a wire. It's just sort of
right. I mean,
its
it
path.
follows the path of least resistance. It
Right.
goes wherever it goes. Just think of when you spill a glass of milk on a table, it just spreads out everywhere. Well, that's what the electrical current is doing in the...
Ooh, we're just bathing in it, huh?
Yeah, and it travels on the surface. And the Public Service Commission allowed them to do this back in like 1980, 81, and I'm speaking for Wisconsin. I don't know about the rest of the country. And it was supposed to be just a temporary fix because what was happening is electrical usage was increasing to the point where the wires' voltage is a measure of pressure. And the pressure was so high on the wires that they couldn't take the pressure anymore. It's like when you have a 2-lane highway and you expand and you know, you need to go from 2 lanes to 4 lanes because there's just so much traffic. Well, instead of rewiring and putting up bigger wires that would handle the electrical current and putting up a big enough neutral to handle the return flow back to the substation, they shove electricity into the ground.
Okay.
And that's why, you know, one of the reasons the cell tower, you know, it can't handle that 2.5 million transient that's produced is because the wiring is so poor.
It's hard to get my mind wrapped around that 2.5 million figure. I mean, you're saying 60 megahertz is what's allowed?
Is normal.
It's
yeah,
normal.
60, if you think back to physics, you know, that kind of looks like a wave motion, that sine wave, you know, 60 cycle per second.
Okay.
And what's produced on the cell tower is 2.5 million, and the wiring cannot handle that. But the wiring can't handle, you know, just even a general household. You know, the wiring is so poor. I had Excel come out and look at the wiring behind my house. It's so old, the insulation is shredded, and it's just bare wires. And he says, well, those wires are older than you and me.
Okay.
And he was probably 60.
Are they nylon wrapped? I know they used to take the wires and put the cloth wrap on them.
No, that's disintegrated. It's just...
Oh, right. That's like 100 years ago or something they did that.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And do you think that they would... But they say it would cost too much money to update. What would really cost them is because every time you've got all this trash on the line, all this garbage that, you know, should be on the neutral, taken back to the substation, you know, you've got wires that can't handle the trash, you've got all these crappy currents. All this electrical pollution makes your meter spin faster.
Oh, wow, I never thought of that.
So guess what? They don't want to fix the problem because they are raping us on our electric bills.
Oh, I see. It's just we're getting charged for it, but we're not getting an efficient use of that power that we pay for.
Exactly.
Wow.
So do you think there's any incentive for them to upgrade their lines? Well, when if they actually upgrade their lines, hey, you can double my bill. If you upgrade my lines, my bill will probably drop in half, and we're back to square one.
And all the time, we got all these green movements out there, people talking about pollution and excessive use of energy. And here it turns out we're just wasting it. It's just kind of like what would be if we had a water faucet and you just got that thing open full blast, but when you go to tap into that hose, you're only getting a tenth of the stream. The rest of it's just spilling out all over the ground. That would be the corollary.
That's close, yeah. It's the electricity that's going out on the wire. The wires can't handle it. So when it tries to go back to the substation, it gets there, but it gets there very inefficiently, so a lot is wasted. You know, like you put out 10 cows on pasture in the morning, and when you bring them into milk, you only bring 5 back in. Well, you know, you lost 5 cows. I mean, you know,
right.
Didn't come home. So, you know, as other people have talked to me, it's like, why wouldn't you want to, you know, get the electricity back to the substation in an efficient manner?
You know, I live in the city, and I know for a fact that we seldom hear of any of these issues that you're dealing with up north, out west, in the rural farmlands. And
in the cities, it's worse.
In the cities, it's got to be amplified 1,000 times, right?
Exactly.
Pam, we should be thanking you right now. All the listeners, all the people listening right now, you should be thanking Pam, because I got to be honest, I deal with a lot of issues. There's so many issues to deal with, I sometimes don't know which ones to address. It's just a matter of triaging. But then this electrical pollution, this is so prevalent everywhere. It's a ubiquitous issue. We all are dealing with this one. We need to thank you for bringing this attention to our attention.
You know, and you can't see electrical pollution like you can see water pollution or air pollution. You can't taste it. You can't see it. You can't, well, you can feel it, because I can feel it. I walked into one bar and I said, my legs and feet started immediately tingling really bad, and I said, and they're right by a high line. And I didn't say anything, but I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine what they have to deal with, you know, and my feet and legs were tingling really bad. It's happened a couple times. But yeah, the stray voltage where, you know, cows got sick and whatever, that was all, you know, farmer problems. You know, nobody realizes that if you use electricity, you are affected. I mean, you are affected in your homes. You're affected everywhere you go. Most likely everybody lives close to a cell tower, you know, maybe within a couple miles. But even if you don't, if you've got electricity, if you've got a smart meter on your house, if you've got, you know, wiring that, you know, poor wiring where, you know, just check any utility pole. You'll see a wire being driven into the ground. Almost every pole has a wire being driven into the ground, and that's electricity that should be going out on a line back to the utilities.
Oh, I see, right. There's a new regulation where you have to have 2 6-foot copper poles driven into the ground, and basically you're saying that excess overflow just pours right in there and sits like a little pool bathing us underneath our homes, underneath the ground. We're just like immersed in this bubble of electromagnetic frequency.
Yeah, and when you look at all the, I mean, even to the point of like spy satellites, you know, beaming crap down from space. I mean, we are totally bathed in electromagnetic pollution that our body was never, ever meant to handle.
No, for 1 million years that human beings have been on this planet, I mean, that's an estimate, I don't know for sure, but it's just safe to say for 1 million years, it's only been within the last 100 years that we've exposed ourselves to this new problem.
And look at the diseases of modern man in the last 100 years that are now commonplace, that just did not exist to any degree.
Well,
you know, cancer was unheard of in the, you know, in the early 1900s. Maybe 2 out of 100, maybe 2% of the population got cancer.
Especially
now it's over 50%.
And right, well, actually, isn't like one out of 3 people now? You can figure 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4.
I thought it was
people.
Actually closer to 1 out of 2, but don't quote me on that.
No, it's like 2 years ago. I remember the figures were 1 out of 3, and diabetes rates are through the roof. But that's probably a different.
That's affected by electromagnetic pollution.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh my goodness!
Absolutely.
Oh no, I didn't know that. I thought
sugar regulation, blood pressure. Yeah. how many people can't regulate blood pressure?
Well, how many people, right, are taking statins? And it turns out that the LDL and HDL, I'm sure you're familiar with this, but I don't know, our medical doctors, all I got to do, I can say shame on you guys. If we get bullet wounds or a car accident, I got to admit, you guys are top notch. You know, when it comes to, you're the best in the world. But when it comes to the simplest remedies of actual human health, I wish I could use expletives to describe my disgust at their ignorance and lack of education. And the way the people worship these doctors, they go to these hospitals and like, oh, doctor. Makes me angry, Pam.
You know, it is frustrating. They're of course not taught any of this.
No.
Some of them have tried. I mean, and there are some people who are, you know, like Dr. Mercola, who...
Dr. Mercola, yes. We tried to get him on the show, but he's a very busy man, and bless him.
So there are some out there, but doctors legally can do two things: diagnose from a specific set of symptoms and prescribe drugs. And if they deviate from that, they'll lose their license. In fact, there's places that monitor how many drugs doctors dispense.
And they're paid by the pharmaceutical companies to push those drugs.
And so the only nutritional advice they could give is eat calcium to ward off osteoporosis. Legally, they can't even give any other nutritional advice.
Okay, now I've listened to Dr. Mercola, and correct. What is your opinion on this? I heard that a cow's. I'm glad you're a veterinarian because you're the person to ask for this. I heard that cow cells are 15 times the size of human cells. And that the cow calcium that's in their milk for the baby cows is actually not able to be processed by human beings. And what we're getting is overcalcification and calcium deposits in our body. What do you say to that?
I have to be a little careful. Raw milk is great. I wish I could get raw milk.
Right. But even wouldn't goat's milk be better for the human consumption?
There's some people who I drink cow's milk. There's some people who, if they do have a problem with digesting cow's milk, they do well on goat's milk.
I see. We digress a little bit from the electrical pollution topic, but it's all related because we're talking about a situation where this is our environment, this is where we live, and if our environment is unhealthy, going to the doctors for medications and drugs that only mask the symptoms don't ever address the cause. They're always looking for the cure to cancer, but never the cause of cancer. And here, do these cell phone towers, has it been confirmed that they cause cancer?
Well, there's some studies overseas that you were either 3 or 4 more times likely to die from cancer if you were within a tenth of a mile of a cell tower, and I am within the tenth of a mile of that cell tower. Those are peer-reviewed studies that have been proven that you do run a higher risk of cancer.
You know, it reminds me of a story.
And those are 2 of hundreds.
Hundreds. Yeah, we've got them here. There's one not far, and I walk by it every day, and I don't think much of it. But now when I walk by that thing, I got to think, what should we be looking for on those towers? How can we tell is there any visible way that we can tell if they've got that device or that if this thing is being controlled? Or
boy, it's not a very big device. I don't know if you could even see it. I mean, you'd almost have to call them up and ask, do you have an RF choke on that tower?
An RF choke, yeah.
Why not? But, the fixes aren't that hard. Let's look at the 3 issues that we talked about, one being the cell tower. Okay, $35 part, plus enough filters to make sure you're not throwing a bunch of trash out on the line. The smart meter, give me back my analog meter. I'm a college graduate. Even if you're not a college graduate, you could probably look at the numbers, read it, and call it into the utilities. If they don't, want to say they're saving money by, cutting out a job, which this country needs, to go around and read the meters. I can read my meter, and if something's really screwy, then if you have to send somebody out, you can send it out. I can read my meter and call it in. So, the simple fix for smart meters is give me my old analog meter back. The simple fix for electrical pollution and the ground currents in the ground is put up a 5th wire. Keep the electrical grid exactly the way it is. Just put up another wire to take the electricity back to the substation. Those are 3 simple, cheap, easy fixes.
When you say put up a 5th wire, we've got a hot, a ground, a neutral. What's the 4th?
Okay, well, there's phase A, B, and D. If you look out most of the lines, there's 3 wires, phase A, B, and D, phase A, B, and C behind my house, and then the neutral. And so if they just put up another neutral to handle the excess load, and in fact, the utility's own research arm published a study in 1996, not quite 20 years ago, that said a simple, easy fix to the problem.
A 5th wire.
That would also maintain the present distribution system is a 5th wire. The own utilities research arm advocated a 5th wire to get the electricity out of the ground.
So basically,
20 years ago.
All over the country, we'd have to have these things installed. I can maybe see why they're hesitant to do this, because this requires a revamping of it. But like you said, it would provide jobs, and that's what we need right now. So
yeah, to run a 5th wire, it would cost him pennies. What did Dave Stetzer say on a tape that I listened to of his? It would be 30 cents on $100 monthly utility bill it would cost, or maybe not even that much. I mean, it was such a small amount that it was pathetic.
Oh, and all of us would be glad to pay it. I mean, after listening to you today...
Yeah, because then our bills would go down a whole lot more.
The bills would go down, our health would go up, productivity would increase.
Do you know how much this country could save on health care if there was safe electricity? How much businesses spend? They spend millions upon millions. You know how much hospitals have to spend on all this really expensive equipment because of all the bad electricity and the trash on the lines for, filters and all this other stuff for like their MRIs and whatever, because all their sensitive surgical equipment, whatever, that I don't have a figure, but I mean, what businesses could save if they didn't have to do all the safeguards and spend untold millions upon millions of dollars.
Well, Pam, again, I actually feel a little bit embarrassed and ashamed that I was ignorant of this issue. Now that I see what a problem this is, I'm almost speechless when I just sit there and contemplate this new situation. I speak a lot about GMO foods, about pollution, contaminants in the water, everything from pharmaceuticals to the fluorosilicic acid. I speak about the toxic effects of sugar, aspartame. We're being bombarded, BPA in the plastics, and then I didn't even think that here we have this underlying current of problems and issues that is all around us all the time, and we're dealing with it. And I wasn't even aware of this. I know a lot of my listeners, if I'm not aware, and I'm usually on top of this kind of thing, I'm sure a lot of people out there aren't aware of it. Some of these issues come in so fast and hard, we hear them and then we go, okay, well, back to our lives. We can't deal with every single issue. But this is a situation where the walls are just closing in on us further and further. We're going to find ourselves trapped. We are trapped now by the electrical pollution. Where can we go to get away from it?
People are fighting back. In the island of Kauai, in Hawaii, there is now an injunction where they cannot put smart meters on unless the people give them permission. Naperville, Illinois, has filed suit to prevent the installation of smart meters.
Oh, good job, Naperville. Good job.
Yes, one state, is it Connecticut? The Public Service Commission out there, which is a real Public Service Commission instead of the joke we have here in Wisconsin, they said that there's no energy savings and there's no advantage to smart meters. There's some work being done in Maine. I don't know if it's by the Public Service Commission up there or citizens. People are fighting back. But, gee, do you think that, there's a reason there hasn't been any awareness? I mean...
Well, the controlled media won't.
It's kind of planned that people don't know anything about it. The news media feeds us exactly what they want us to hear.
Right. We don't hear about these issues. All the important issues are just being whitewashed over, and that's why we're an alternative news network here at riverwestradio.com. Breaking Down the News is an alternative media site. CNN has lost a lot of viewers, especially from the younger audience, because, look, they just don't buy the propaganda that they're shoveling out now. as if nothing is wrong anymore when everything from every angle seems to be messed up.
Yeah, and so much of this stuff obviously is done under the radar. I don't know if that's a pun intended or not. But
presentation, we're not getting represented. We're not getting represented. Pam, thank you again. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you as soon as we can, and I'm going to follow up off air with you and just stay abreast of your situation out there and bring the people here, not just in Milwaukee, but worldwide. We are a worldwide broadcast. People listen to the show a lot on the archives, where we don't always have that big of an audience on the live listening hour. But when they get home and they're doing their dishes or they're riding in their cars, they podcast it, they do listen, and we do promote it. So your cause will be heard, Pam. It will be heard.
Okay, and this is a worldwide problem, obviously.
Yeah, anywhere.
And there's so many countries that are so far ahead of us. One of the Dave Stetzer has worked a lot with one of the, and I can't pronounce it. It's not the Ukraine, but one of the republics that was part of the Soviet Union. They recognize electrical, radio wave sickness as a diagnosis.
A diagnosis.
They recognize it as a diagnosis.
They'll call anything a disease these days except for the actual things that are a problem.
So they recognize it as a true diagnosis.
You can't take a pill to solve this issue. Ingesting pills will not stop the EMF frequency pollution that you're experiencing and getting bombarded with. All right. Well, again, thank you, Pam. We're going to have to drop the line here and get moving, but we'll talk to you as soon as possible, and I'll follow up off air with email correspondence and phone calls.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, audience, this is Pamela Jafke. She's out there in Clark County. Please, is there any contact information? Do you need people to contact you for support or maybe an email, anything?
Well, I'll tell you, sometimes I get 300 emails a day.
Do you? Oh, that's good to hear, actually.
And I can get overwhelmed. Well, I guess I don't mind giving out my phone number. It's in the phone book, so
okay.
It's public knowledge. It's 715-229-4195.
And it's Pamela Jafke, veterinarian. Thank you, ma'am. I hope people will help you. We will spread the word. We will spread the word.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome for your time, and we'll be right back. Got more news. It never stops here at Breaking Down the News. It just never stops until, I don't know, we're not going to fix all these problems, but we're going to try. Pam, take care. Have a good day, ma'am.
You bet. Bye-bye.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. And we're back. This article from Washington's blog has predicted Bernanke launches QE3 to help the big banks, which will destroy the economy. We predicted last week that Bernanke would launch QE3 this week. Today, the Fed announced that it will buy $40 billion of mortgage-backed securities per month indefinitely. This is just another bailout for the big banks. If the government had instead given money directly to the consumer, we would be out of this economic slump by now. Bernanke claims that the main justification for QE3 is to boost employment. This is slightly ironic since Bernanke's policies are largely responsible for creating high unemployment in the first place. The real justification is to try to artificially prop up asset prices, but that approach has been proven to be an absolute failure. This is in addition to numerous other easing programs, as CNBC notes, and I quote, "In addition, the Fed said it will continue its program of selling shorter-dated government debt and buying longer-term securities, a mechanism known as Operation Twist. It will also continue its policies of reinvesting principal payments from agency debt and mortgage-backed securities back into mortgages. These actions, which together will increase the committee's holdings of longer-term securities by about $85 billion each month through the end of the year, should put downward pressure on longer-term interest rates, support mortgage markets, and help to make broader financial conditions more accommodative, according to the Fed's statement. But will it? And well, the Fed isn't stopping there. Here's what else they had to say. There's strong hints that they'll do treasuries next. Joel Lavorgna, chief economist at Deutsche Bank Advisors, said in a phone interview from London, he said, they are pulling out all these stops to try to get this economy to gain some traction and, most important, to get unemployment down. This sounds nice, except that the experts say that quantitative easing destroys the economy and, despite widespread assumptions, hurts the little guys. As we said in 2008, welcome to the Fed's weekend at Bernie's. Oh my goodness! And a side note: if you are a homeowner, you probably want to refinance at some point. Well, the new banker bailout disguised as QE3, the latest move represents huge transfer of wealth from the middle class to the elite. Yeah, it's the way it is. Well, Ben Bernanke's announcement that the Federal Reserve will embark on an open-ended scheme to purchase $40 billion in mortgage-backed securities each month has been touted by the establishment media as the beginning of QE3. It is, in fact, nothing less than another banker bailout in disguise. While many, many people have rightly attacked the Fed's policy of printing money as a band-aid that does little to solve the economy in the long term, this new move isn't even about that. The policy announced yesterday will merely see the Fed use taxpayer money to purchase more bad debt in the form of junk mortgage-backed derivative-based securities that have been sold over and over again. This has nothing to do with getting the economy going again and will only serve as yet another huge wealth transfer from the middle class to the elite. While the Fed claims the move will facilitate more lending, it will do nothing of the sort. As the China Securities Journal reports today, QE3 is not likely to result in more loans. Michael Snyder comments, he says, and I quote, "The truth is that it isn't as if banks are hurting for cash to loan out." Hey, we got Ingrid coming in here. I was just keeping the mic fresh for her. Ingrid had some problems with her back, but she's in the house now, and she's going to do her inspirational hour. Just announcing you, Ingrid. Telling everybody you're coming. You're actually going to make it on air today. I was a little bit late myself. I had a cold or something. I don't even know what I had, but I couldn't sleep last night. Could not sleep last night, and barely made it in here, and it's just been hard gabbing my face off for 2.5 hours. But look, everybody, Ingrid is in the house, so we want to welcome her. I'm going to sign off here and then let you guys get inspired by her. Thank you for listening. If you were out there today, thank you. I'm sure you got an earful. It's always the case out here. I'm Michael Wordsworth, breaking down the news. Thank you for listening. Peace out. We'll be back Monday at 3:30 Central Standard. Good day.